This is the T-70 Tank Company box set for Flames of War. This box set is for Soviet forces in the Red Banner Forces book. Light tanks became increasingly outclassed as the war progressed, but early on they helped make up the numbers while medium and heavy tank production ramped up. Commanders could utilise their speed and small size to threaten the enemy's flanks. Blitz and Pieces have generously supplied this kit for review. If we look at the back of the box, there's an exploded assembly diagram and a side view of a completed and painted kit. The box set contains 5 plastic T-70 tanks, 1 tank commander sprue, 1 decal sheet and 2 unit cards. Let's take a look at the plastic. Each tank comes on a single sprue of dark green plastic. Parts count is low, with each tank just 12 parts. There are no options here, you need every piece. Detail is sharp and parts are well formed with no flash. The engine deck has some nice grille detail moulded on, and tools moulded onto the fenders. Track's a single piece. Track detail is a bit simplified, but this is a small sacrifice for the ease of assembly of the one-piece design. Road wheel detail is good. Note the twin exhausts. T-70 was powered by 2 automotive engines. Using car engines meant an existing design could be used, but the original unsynchronized twin-engine layout caused problems. Later T-70s coupled the 2 engines through a transmission and differential, creating a more stable system. Here's the turret. This is the later angular welded design. This replaced the conical shape of some very early production turrets. T-70 had a one-man turret, and the new design gave the commander, who also acted as gunner and loader, a bit more room. One of the improvements in the T-70 over the T-60 was better armament. The T-70 had a 45mm gun in place of the earlier 20mm weapon, which had become increasingly insufficient for anti-tank work. In an unusual move, the main gun unmantled on the kit is moulded in a recess perpendicular to the plane of the sprue. This means it protrudes above and below, just begging to be bent in the box. There are some support structures around it clearly intended to protect it, but at least one of the gun barrels in my review copy was bent. Not snapped or anything, but it needed straightening, and this will weaken the plastic. I'm sure Battlefront had their reasons for this, but it does seem an odd engineering choice. Despite this, it builds up into a nice little kit. Here's the finished product. Battlefront generally make excellent plastic wargaming kits, and this one looks great. Parts are well formed and the kit goes together well, with enough bolt, rivet and grille detail to paint up into a nice piece for the table. Let's look at what else you get. The Tank Commander sprue has 6 figures in hard injection moulded plastic. There are a good variety of poses here and more figures than you need. Detail on these is sharp and well defined. The decals are a sheet of white tactical numbers, patriotic slogans and diamond-shaped formation markings. This is a standard sheet, and I think you'll be lucky finding enough room on the tiny T-70 for the slogans, but the red stars will be useful. You get 2 unit cards, one for the T-70 Hero Company and one for the standard T-70 Tank Company. Soviet stats are pretty dire at this stage in the war. We'll have a closer look at the details later. There are no separate formation or other cards in the box. Let's look at some history. The T-70 was a Soviet 2-man light tank. It was developed to counter some of the shortcomings of the T-60, light armour and inadequate firepower. Despite a weight of just 9 tons, T-70 had up to 60mm of armour in places. This gave it some decent protection. Armament was the model 1938 45mm gun. This gave the T-70 a lot more firepower than the 20mm gun of the T-60. Not enough to take on medium tanks, but enough firepower to deal with light tanks and soft-skinned vehicles. It also had a coaxial DT machine gun. T-70 was powered by 2 gas car engines mounted in line on the right side of the tank. With just a 2-man crew, driver and commander, the commander had to load and fire the gun as well as command the tank. Light tanks were meant to be used in the scout role, and had the speed to dash ahead. These smaller tanks were also easier to produce than more complex medium tank designs like the T-34. This meant they could be produced in larger numbers and by smaller factories. However, this abundance often meant T-70s and other light tank designs were used in place of medium tanks in armoured formations. They were a crucial stopgap used to make up the numbers until sufficient quantities of T-34 and KV tanks could be produced. But despite their decent armour and marginally adequate gun, this small two-man tank wasn't a match even for the five-man Panzer III. About 8,000 T-70s were produced, but light tanks were phased out of widespread use by Soviet Tank Corps by late 1943, replaced by medium tanks. Light tanks continued to be used by artillery and other support units until war's end. The T-70 chassis was also adapted for the Su-76 self-propelled gun, a useful vehicle with a 76mm gun used for infantry support. Let's look at using the T-70 on the tabletop. You get two cards in the box set, one for a T-70 tank company and one for a hero tank company. The T-70 is a tank unit, and the difference between the two cards is skill rating and the to-hit number. The standard T-70 company is reckless, hit on a 2+, while the hero company is aggressive and hit on a 3+. This represents the more experienced crews who'd survived combat and were a bit more tactically savvy. The skill number also reflects their greater experience. It's a 5+ skill for the green crews of a standard company, while the hero crews are trained, passing skill tests on a 4+. Still not experienced veterans, but every bit helps. Motivation for both is the same at a confident 4+, and they both have not one step back, giving a last stand rating of 3+. These little tanks are likely to stick with it if the going gets tough. Armour Protection is 4 in the front, 2 side and 1 top. Not wonderful protection, but okay for such a small tank in the light tank role. Tactical move is 10 inches or 25 centimetres, with reasonable dash speeds. However, cross is a 4+, so you're going to want to keep these light tanks out of difficult terrain. Improved armament was one of the main features of the T-70 design. The 45mm main gun has a 20-inch or 50cm range, a rate of fire 1 moving or halted, an AT of 7 and a 4+ firepower. Not really up to going toe-to-toe with German tanks, but good enough for lighter armour, half-tracks and vehicles. Interestingly, the rate of fire 1 gun doesn't get slow firing, however it does get overworked. This has the same result of a +1 to hit penalty when firing on the move. Seems logical when you consider the restrictions of operating in a one-man turret. The coaxial machine gun has a standard 16-inch or 40cm range, rate of fire 3, AT 2 and 6 firepower. Hero T-70 companies can only be taken in 3 tank companies at 6 points. That works out at 2 points per tank. Standard T-70 companies are much cheaper and have more options. These start at 4 points for 3 tanks, up to 10 tanks for 13 points, averaging roughly 1.3 points for each T-70. T-70 and Hero T-70 companies are available as formation support options in Red Banner and Enemy at the Gates. They're also available as options within Red Banner T-34 formations. The force diagrams allow options to take T-34s, Valentines or T-70s. The Valentine is a viable option here. Russia used this British infantry tank in the light tank role. It has significantly better armour at 6.61. Initially armed with a 2-pounder gun with similar stats to the T-70's 45mm, it now has the option of a 6-pounder gun for more punch. But then you're probably really better off putting the points towards T-34s. So while the T-70 is the historical choice, you do have some other options to consider to fill this role in your formations. So the plastic T-70 is a nice little plastic kit. It has low parts count and goes together easily. Quality is the high standard we've come to expect from Battlefront plastics, with reasonable detail for the scale, well moulded and crisp. Apart from the odd gun and mantlet placement on the sprue, engineering is well considered and solid. If you need a light tank option to sweep around the enemy and threaten areas, the T-70 might work for you. Just don't expect them to be a match for more capable German medium tank designs in this time period. Historically, they did not do well used like this, and I can't see why it would work any better on the tabletop. They would be a cheap support choice, or taken as a combat company in a T-34 battalion. I guess you could try to field a bunch of these as a light tank swarm to overwhelm an opponent. But by this time sufficient T-34s were available to flesh out tank units. Your points might be better used here. Thanks to Blitz Peaces for supplying this kit for review. Their generous support helps Fog of War continue to review a wider range of products than I could on my own. If you need more products for your army, consider Blitz Peaces' online store. They ship worldwide and have a good range available. Give them a try. Blitz Peaces are also hosting the upcoming Asian Team Championships for Team Yankee. Check out the details on their website.